Chapter 11, The Destructive Wife. I've been a marriage counselor for over 4 decades, and in my experience, 90% or more of all marriage counseling is initiated by women. They are inherently relational and are in many ways the glue that holds marriages and families together. Thank God for the gift of women. I have spent thousands of hours listening to women tell me about the pain they are going through in their marriages and with their husbands, and they are being completely honest. This is another thing I respect so much about women. They are much more emotionally vulnerable than most men. The Kleenex boxes in my office have been emptied hundreds of times by women, but I don't believe all of the men I have ever counseled combined have emptied one box. So I'm a huge believer in the natural strength women have in marriage and family relationships. But I also know that women have natural weaknesses and problems that are common to them as a gender. I know it because I've seen it so many times. After counseling for as long as I have, you see the same basic dynamics of male-female relationships over and over. And in the process, you observe that both husbands and wives have natural but unhealthy tendencies in how they respond to one another. But some of our base instincts go beyond unhealthy and become destructive. The longer they are allowed in our marriages, the more they deteriorate the inner core of the relationship. The passion, intimacy, and goodwill of the marriage fade away as toxic emotions such as anger, resentment, and hopelessness take their place. An example of a well-intentioned but destructive wife is the biblical story from the 4th chapter in John's Gospel about the Samaritan woman at the well. Jesus loved her and approached her to heal her of the inner issues that were causing her failed marriages. Even though she tried to hide the truth from Jesus out of shame, he nevertheless revealed to her that he knew she had experienced 5 divorces and was now living with the man out of wedlock. Even though I'm sure all of her ex-husbands had faults of their own and contributed to the demise of each marriage, there is no doubt she was a major contributor to each of her failed marriages. In other words, she was a destructive wife. Being the all-knowing Son of God, Jesus got to the root issue in her life that was causing her to sabotage her relationships with men. As I stated in the 1st chapter, only God can meet our deepest needs. No human being can do so. But when we don't have a daily dependent relationship with God, we automatically transfer the expectations of our deepest needs to our spouses and those closest to us. And in so doing, we set up the relationship for disappointment and failure. Without a doubt, the Samaritan woman pressured each of her husbands with demands that they were incapable of meeting. Again, I'm sure each of her ex-husbands had flaws that contributed to each divorce. But what we know for sure because of Jesus' encounter with her is she had a spiritual void in her life that drove her to try to squeeze out of men what only God could supply. And that is why Jesus said to her in John chapter 4, verses 13 and 14, Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." Jesus wasn't talking to her about physical thirst or the physical well that was in front of them. He was talking about soul thirst and the deep needs that all of us have that only God can meet. Jesus was telling her to stop expecting men to be God for her and to trust in Him to meet her thirst for love at its deepest level. That was the root issue in her life that was causing her to be destructive in marriage. And Jesus healed her in just one counseling session, and that should give all of us hope. The purpose of the next 2 chapters is to educate women in how to be the best wives they can be in fulfilling their husband's needs and to keep any negative behavior from sabotaging their hopes for happiness and marital success.